Good morning, y'all, and welcome to the Republic. And yes, it is morning. Somewhere. No, not here. So the question's been asked, and we shall answer. When is an AR-10 not an AR-10? A brief history. So the AR-10, developed by Armalite and Eugene Stoner for the United States military during Vietnam, in the late 50s, the U.S. military, sadly, fucked up the testing by messing with the rifle, thus causing the rifle to malfunction, and in fact, several to blow up during testing, not because of Eugene Stoner's design, not because of anything that he did, but because they fucked with his rifle. They made parts they shouldn't have made. They switched out parts they shouldn't have switched out. It's not what they're supposed to do. So, sadly, our soldiers ended up, instead of with Eugene Stoner's AR-10, with the M14. Now, the M14, of course, a fine rifle in its own right. Not quite the battle rifle that was needed for the Asian theater. Had a lot of trouble with, of course, the weather down there. They rusted a lot. Also, the wooden stocks didn't like the environment all that much, so they fucking broke, left and damn right. Back to the drawing board and to Eugene Stoner. So we go forward about 30 years, and DPMS decides that they're going to try their hand now that Eugene Stoner and Armalite's patents have expired, building their own AR-15 rifles. A few differences, of course. Later on, with the help of Eugene Stoner, Knight's Armament gets into the game with the SR-25. Now, the SR-25 developed in the early 90s for the military by Knight's Armament, specifically for a designated marksman rifle and also for a semi-automatic sniper rifle in some cases. So what are the big differences? What's the big deal? As an AR-15 is an AR-15. An AR-10 is an AR-10, right? Wrong. So the AR-15 has become, and by the way, we are going to use an actual DPMS. This is the Oracle, or it used to be, before I fucked with it. But, so the AR-15 platform is just known as the AR-15. It doesn't matter who builds it. Everything's, you've got commercial spec, but for the most part, they're all mil spec. What does that mil spec means? That means that you're going to be able to interchange parts from one rifle to another over several different manufacturers, dozens, probably hundreds of manufacturers out there, from magazines to optics to handguards to butt stocks to grips to triggers to you name it. Basically any part that you can think of, somebody makes one, you can put it on the AR-15. Not so at all with the AR-10. Now, of course, we do hear the term AR-10 used just as generically as we do AR-15. However, again, not the case. So the AR-10 is much different than what is actually what we know most AR-10s are. Well, it's more appropriately an LR-308, which is following the DPMS style of rifle. So, a couple of differences. To start, right here, so we can see this really angular cut. And what I'll do is, not sure how YouTube feels about that these days, but whatever. So, that angular cut right in through on the upper and lower receiver. So Does it have any specific purpose? Does it really do anything? No. But it does set itself apart, and even though this is an AR-15 and not an AR-10, when's an AR-10 not an AR-10? When it's an AR-15. But the DPMS AR-10s still use the same rounded edge that we see, there we go, right here on the AR-15. So the same old cut that we're used to seeing every day, that's what the LR-308s use. Again, because DPMS styling. Is that the only difference? No. No, it's actually not. There's quite a bit. So when you get down to what's actually interchangeable between an AR-10 and an LR-308, you really come down to just a few parts, and none are really major components. Of course, because of that cut, you can't interchange the upper and lower receivers. Because the thread patterns up here are different, you can't use the same barrel nut. Of course, even though they look, and they are very, very close to being the same, the gas tube length is very different in an AR-10, slightly longer than what the LR-308 are. What does that mean? It means you can't use the same gas system, can't use the same barrels. None of that shit. Also different, the buffer system itself. So the castle nut, same castle nut, that is interchangeable. But the entire rest of that system, from the buffer spring to the buffer tube, all different. The buffer in the LR-308 is more reminiscent of the AR-15's carbine buffer, whereas the AR-10 buffer is more reminiscent of the AR-15 rifle length buffer. So very, very different systems, very, very different things. Makes it a real pain in the ass when you go out to find AR-10 parts, which is why a lot of builders, where they may build AR-15s all fucking day long, gonna be a little less open to building AR-10s. Why? A lot of the AR-10 parts that you find, yes, they really are LR-308 parts, not AR-10s. So if you are looking for AR-10 parts, that may not be what you're getting at all. On the other hand, you could be looking for an LR-308 part and accidentally come across an actual AR-10 part. So when is an AR-10 not an AR-10? Well, for one, when it's an LR-308. Now, that said, when is an AR-10 not an AR-10? When it happens to be this Diamondback DB-10. So, once again, another screw job for the AR-10 community. So, we do have this same cut and curvature in the upper and lower receivers for the DB-10. Same as with the AR-10. However, once you get into the threads for the barrel nut, they actually are threaded for the 308. The gas systems run the same, the buffer systems run the same, and I'm honestly not really sure about the bolt carrier groups, which, by the way, the AR-10 bolt carrier groups also not compatible with LR-308s. The head spacing between the two of them are very, very different. So again, not interchangeable parts. AR-10, SR-25, LR-308. The long and short of it is, when is an LR my ass, when is an AR-10 not an AR-10? Short answer, when it's not built by Armalite. Everything else, It's just not the same. So if you enjoyed this video, and you know what, even if you didn't, if you love the Second Amendment, if you like two-way content, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and by all means, run the shit out of that comment section. Please. Until then, we'll see you later.